Hanji, welcome to another episode of the Not in the Clouds podcast. And you are with Juan Singh, Sarab, and Asa Singh. Starting off this episode, I want to ask you guys, from the contribution of the Jar Sahibzade, what is your takeaway? What do you think about in the month of Bor, but maybe all year round?
You listen to like people like maybe Sant Kartar Singh, when you hear some of their katha, or even some Namtari Jathedars, there was a reed that they used to sing, and it would go along the lines of Sir Jave Ta Jave, Mera Sikhi Sidak Na Hare. And I think they encapsulate that may my head go if it needs to go, but may my faith in Sikhi never falter. And then I guess the following question is then, why is the Sikhi element important in that? Institutionalize those kind of thoughts and all of what that represents. And I think it kind of shows the importance of having those institutions, because without it, things get lost. As I've gotten older, I see the same things within their sacrifices. Char Sahibzade and ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੇਅੰਤ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਨੇ, the countless shaheeds, I think each and every one of them, what they encapsulate is they understood that we need to protect something. And every day I'm reminded, what was that thing they were trying to protect, and what are we trying to represent through these different jinn that we have. Jinn meaning these different possessions that we have, whether that is your mala, whether that is your weaponry, your kirpan, whether that is your case, whether that's your dastar, whether that's your dada. All of these different things. I think all of those things represent what they were trying to protect.
Did some chat GPT work, and it came back with like courage, faith, unwavering devotion, like all those things. And then the question that you asked then was, well, how is it applied to your life? And I thought, man, when in the month of December, it's normally December, January, it's really, really cold. And we're all kind of like, get the radiator on, get the heating on. And think back to how the Chote Sahibzade must have felt to be sitting there just in their normal pushaks and tiram mera and getting that one warm glass of milk in the evenings, and he had to give up everything for that one glass of milk. That mental strength and that capacity is within everyone to do that, and sometimes perhaps it's just an excuse not to do it. Like we're doing this episode in the morning, and there's no excuse not to wake up in the morning, but there's always an excuse. It's cold, or the jai, or not going to get enough hours of sleep. But
let me play devil's advocate. The Jar Sahibzade didn't give up their faith, right? So their faith being Sikhi. Converting to Islam, what did that actually mean in that time?
Gurbani realizes all of these things as the different flowers in a flower garden. And to make all of the flowers in the flower garden of one type of flower is not increasing its beauty. I don't think anybody would ever agree to that. And I think that's what fundamentally Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was standing up against. When I was in school, I remember a lot of those kind of comments saying, well, that's all well and good, and I understand the sacrifice, but why should that make a difference to me? I just want to live my life. All well and good, they made those sacrifices. But I think when it comes to your doorstep, and somebody's knocking at your door and saying, do this right now, the way I'm saying, when somebody's knocking on your door and trying to force you to just be that thing, I think that's what fundamentally Sikhi is saying, that we will not allow that to happen.
And think about it, like we're only first, second generation, maybe third generation in the UK.
Yeah.
Like that's not long ago. Like for that to happen 200 years ago, we're now here. I think there's a direct correlation, that somebody stood up against the British Empire in India. It's the same thing back when Chota Sahibzade, right? They fought against the Arabic Empire. I don't know what the Mughal Empire, the Mughal Empire, right? And then that allowed Sikhi to flourish to where it is now.
We wanted to talk about gears and the importance of gears and why we should keep our hair in the sort of in 2025 or even this century, really. What's the importance of gears to you?
Going into different langar halls when we were younger, and seeing Bhai Taaru Singh's tasveer, and initially when younger thinking, why is this tasveer here? Because it's quite a graphic image, seeing somebody's scalp being taken off from the skull, and asking questions of why that's happening, I think is very difficult, especially to explain to a younger person. You're like explaining this which is such a big concept, that your strength is within being different, or within representing something bigger than yourself.
The Roop of the Khalsa, it's one of the 5 Ks. Within the Cerebral Granth, it's written that Khalsa mera Roop hoye khas, that Khalsa is my form, right? And if Ges is part of that form, then it goes back to, I don't think you've said it yet, Juan. I'm preempting what you're going to say about who your idol is, and trying to being a devotee of your idol. So there's that element of Khalsa and Sikhi, but I think there's always, Juan, we've had this conversation before, that there needs to be a distinction made between Sikhi and Khalsa. Because there is this form of Khalsa that we, wearing a kashera, Ges, all the 5 Ks, but then as a Sikh, that's all encompassing, right? You could be a Hindu, Muslim. What is a Sikh? It's a devotee, a bhagat, somebody that's deeply in love with their isht, with their beloved. I was watching a Laila Majnu rendition, like a more modern one. Terrible portrayal, but there was one really good scene within it where Majnu's lying on his bed, basically ready to die, but he's got to this mental stage where outwardly he looks like he's just mentally incapacitated, like he's gone mental, but he's seeing Lela in everything, like the leaves, the wind, the grass, and the way that they created this scene and how they brought Arabic into it. He's saying, like we do, like Guru Gobind Singh ji, tuhi, 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 tuhi. He's gone into that sort of thing, that you are everywhere. And within Arabic, it's la ilaha illallah, God is everyone, everywhere. I thought that was a fantastic scene. But that's Sikhi, right? So having this outwardly appearance is Khalsa. So I think the importance of keeping hair, like the hukam manne janda, easy, straightforward. But why? Why are you accepting that hukam? Well, you need to understand, one, why is it that I want to cut my hair? Main bauri mera ram patar, rach rach tako karo singar. I'm crazy because my isht, my beloved, is Guru Gobind Singh ji, and I decorate myself. So I clean my hair, wash my hair, keep my hair, because that's what he wants.
See, I agree with that in whole heart, but I think I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today. If someone just wants to go to work, come home, game for a couple of hours, sit in front of a computer, sit and, just lose themselves, it's probably the most easiest time in human mankind history to just sit at home and do nothing, stare at a screen, talk to people across the world over over the internet, over a game or whatever. And you don't need to ever leave your house, right? Your food gets delivered to your house. You get a source of income. We don't even need to leave the house to work and stuff. And in this day and age, how important is that roop? You can literally sit in a little box somewhere connected to the internet, and you have everything.
To an extent, I know, I see what you're saying. I think maybe it's a level of a modern privilege. Like right now, the average person is living as a king used to live. Regular meals, a roof over your head, a family unit. For example, even multiple relatives. That was only seen in the family of kings, like because they had access to healthcare, etc., or they had access to regular food. Yeah. So I think it's a result of modern privilege and modern infrastructure. But I think it goes back to Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani, where Sache Pasha Ji in many places are saying that none of this is forever. There is always going to be a moment in your life, whether it's at a personal level or at a societal level, where shit hits the fan. Yeah. So either that happens with you at a personal level and you come to that realization, because I think it happens regularly, because life has its ups and downs, or it happens at a societal level. Obviously, I don't want that to happen, but I think when things become more and more polarized, I think that these things are bound to happen. And I think when that happens, either you cower, and that is also an option. And obviously, I think the example you gave, maybe that's the option they would choose, or there's the option to obviously go down the path which the Shaheeds have shown us.
A couple of days ago, whilst going through Instagram, there was this animated short that came up, and it's about, and I was just googling this in the background, of a guy called Sahibzade Singh, and he's an American Sikh, and there's he's created this. I'm not sure if it's like one episode or if it's like a short film called The American Sikh, and the animation is really well done. It's done by like an Australian animation studio, but essentially what you're talking about, where in order to fit into society, he removes his bug, cuts his hair, and goes down this route of like becoming a skateboarder. And
FY, you can wear the star and have a long beard and be a skateboarder. If anything, it'll make you look more cool.
And it's a helmet, right?
He goes into this phase of like, that's it, don't want to wear my bug, just want to fit into society, being in America. And he goes 10 years past in his life, and he doesn't feel anything, like he still doesn't have a sense of his identity and he's like, well, okay, let me try Sikhi again, let me try going to the Gurdwara, wearing the star to find myself. And when he had that aim of trying to find himself, that's when he truly did.
Wow.
So I think it's that case of, you get in life what you want. If you want to explore something else, then that's the path that you'll go down, right? But if you actually want to go down this path of, this is the heritage that I come from, and for free I've been given this heritage, this philosophy, these sacrifices that have happened for me to live wearing a star. I think we take that for granted. In the UK, we can ride a motorcycle without a helmet, but people had to go, like you said, Duan, had to go through real struggle to being able to keep these items of identification.
I think there's a bit that we haven't covered, and it's the spiritual elements and maybe the etymology of it. Because when I was looking at it, and it's something I didn't know, where in Sanskrit the meaning of the kukka is your head, and the meaning of ish is supreme. By Santok Singh Ji, Santok Singh Ji Kavi, they talk about the case being an element of adorning and adding to your beauty. And they talk about having long hair as being beautiful. And I was laughing in my head. I was like, you can spend your whole life whether with long hair or short hair, but being bold, like that's when you realize the importance of hair. Like before that, like you could have as much issues in your mind. But
you say this. There's a paper released by the American Society of Photobiology, in which essentially they concluded that the less hair that you have on your head or your face, the more likely you are to contract skin cancer. So the more hair you have on your head, the less likely you're to get skin cancer.
I was watching Ramayana with my wife, and there was an example in there where Love and Kush, they were being attacked by these negative energies, which I think we would call Dant in Punjabi, and for them not to be affected by those energies, it was saying in there that those sadhus that have a knot in their case, they would not be affected by those things. And it goes back to actually keeping long hair, but also the element of having it within a knot as well. Sometimes we take that for granted, of actually where the history of that comes from. And then it actually linked back to when we read Jobi's Avatar, Dasam Pashaji, they talk about incarnation of Vishnu called Arahant. It goes through this narration of where the Dans are thinking, where do the Devta get all their powers from? The negative energy is thinking, where is the positive energy getting all of its power from? Because obviously all of this is are metaphors for that at a more of a simple level. They realize that the Devta, they do hom yag, meaning they do Havans, And through the action of doing a Havan, this is what brings all of them, brings them all of this positive energy, and brings positive energy around where they even perform that Homyak. And Arhant is this form where he essentially goes to the dance, and he says to perform these homyak, to make sure that the dance don't receive the power of the homyak, and again simplification, but the power of doing that spiritual practice. We call it Nitane, we call it Havan, we call it Varni, we call it doing your Naam Simran. Where Guru Gobind Singh Ji is giving this example of that, so that the dance do not receive any of the benefit of doing doing that action. What Arhant Dev goes in as this teacher to the dance, which they trust him, and the first thing he says for them to do so that it has no effect is cut your case. And Dasam Pashaji is giving this example, is as soon as they cut their case, they're getting now at this point no spiritual benefit of doing any of the homyak. And this is in Dasam Granth, where Sachibai is saying, and not even that it has no spiritual benefit, it says, Jo koi japa ult teh para, meaning that the benefit that you were going to receive, you will get the opposite benefit.
Remember this guy that I knew? This was in secondary school as well. He cut his dadi. He was like, I wanted it to come back stronger.
Oh, what wars is his daddy fighting, by the way? But did you feel those guys? Okay, so they cut their hair now, right? And it's all fine, but they don't hang around things again. They kind of like
distance themselves,
separate themselves, which is really sad, man.
Just on the face of it, it does feel like an insecurity, doesn't it? All I want to do is merge into the crowd, but then at the same time, I feel conflicted that I don't think people want to merge in. I think everybody wants to be a distinct identity. Like you want to exist as your own individual.
Yeah.
So why do people want to fit in?
We're giving our perspectives, which are obviously the only perspectives we can give. But yeah. But I do have that sympathy as well. I know it's all tongue in cheek. Where I always used to feel that it's not an easy decision that they've probably made. It's like obviously they've made that decision for a certain reason, and maybe that's where whatever reason that was. I don't. Hopefully this doesn't come across that we're painting it as black and white. I don't think it's as easy as that. But yeah, obviously we want to see case being maintained, isn't it? Because we see the importance of it, and I think without it, it's like Guru Gobind Singh Ji in Muqaddama saying that case is my stamp, like the more sharp, Sachipashi calls it. That without that, you don't have my stamp. And I think those that have that love for Guru Gobind Singh Ji, I think knowing that is their stamp, I think I think slowly you start seeing beauty in it as well, and you start seeing beauty within the natural form, and you start seeing actually like having these lines on your face of your beard start not looking as beautiful. And this is just from that perspective. I'm not saying this is an objective thing. I'm just saying that I think those people that start having that love for the Sampashaji, I think slowly you start seeing the beauty in what they've said.
I think when I first heard the word Puchangi or Puchang was from an older Nihang Singh that I sort of used to bump into, and he would never say like Munda or whatever. He would always call the Singhs around Puchangis or like, you know, Puchang Singh or something like that. And I was like, what does that actually mean? Because we don't hear that at home. You don't hear that in your day-to-day language. But language is so key to everything that we do.
Like when we were younger, when somebody would ask our dad how your kids are doing, they would say Sahibzade kidda.
Yeah.
And maybe that's also how it's entrenched. I'm not sure if this is common outside as well, but they would say Sahibzade kidda, meaning that it would be even within that a reminder that there are your young sons.
Yeah.
And just hearing that, then you're going to think of the Sahibzade. And if you've been taught their examples, then hearing an elder say that about you, it's going to remind you of what they've done, isn't it? We can't go through all of this without speaking about Bhai Taaru Singh.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about at that age, even when we see some of the pictures, I think as a habit, when a lot of these paintings are made, you can never gauge age. But at that time, Bhai Taaru Singh is 25, younger than all of us, all three of us. And Bhai Taaru Singh, their kind of story is amazing. But I think the biggest thing there is they're under the care of their mother. So their mother is the one that is filling them with all these stories about all of these things that they've met in their life. And Ratan Singh Ji Pangu is essentially going through this of Zakaria Khan's aim on this front. And I think up until this point, Bhai Mani Singh Ji, on their orders, have been made shaheed. So this is the same person, Zakaria Khan, the one that orders Bhai Mani Singh Ji shahidi, the one that orders Bhai Taaru Singh Ji shahidi is the same person. So this is the kind of person that we're talking about. Zakaria Khan, in pride, says that in their opinion, that I've made the Sikhs extinct, or they have run away and they are hiding in the jungle. And one of their viziers say, I know that you have said that. However, there's one Singh, and his name's Bhai Taaru Singh, and he goes and feeds the Singhs in the jungle, and he pays you tax. That's why we're aware of him. And at this point, he's in Amritsar. Zakaria Khan calls him, and Bhai Taaru Singh Ji is similar to the Choti Sahibzade. On meeting Zakaria Khan, the first thing he says is Fateh. And at that time, to say that in front of the king or a ruler of a certain area was considered the biggest insult, because you're saying, I do not recognize your leadership. And at this point, Zakaria Khan says that you keep this hair as your identity. I will take shoes and hit shoes in your case until you have no more hair. And Bhai Taaru Singh says, you will not be able to do that to me, but that is how your death will happen. And Bhai Taaru Singh says that in this hair has been the Amrit of Guru Gobind Singh Ji. You will not be able to cut my hair. And he had this resolve. There's a meaning behind all of these sacrifices. And Bhai Taaru Singh goes through this history all the way from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, of how Guru Nanak Dev Ji gives the Raj to Babur, and how the meaning behind that is until the Mughal Raj has that respect and love for the Gurukar, they will be able to maintain their Raj for 7 generations. And if they continue it, it will continue. But as soon as they have vair for the Gurus, and Sachipashi specifically says, as soon as you have animosity towards my Sikh, then I'll take that Raj from you. And that's eventually what happens. And Bhai Taaru Singh says, I am one piece as a part of that attainment of getting sovereignty, and he saw that, and he was willing and wanted to, one, obviously Sikhi ke swasana nibhaya, but beyond that, he taught all of the locals that this is your history, and he was knowledgeable about that because he heard it from his mum, and this was being passed on generation to generation. Shortened a lot of the details, but I think Ratan Singh Ji Pangu's the way they've eulogized it is beautiful, and I think Gyani Sher Singh Ji's version of it, I think, is my favorite. So I'd recommend anybody to listen to it. They go into a lot of detail.
There was a film I think Nina had on a couple of days ago, and it was a dumb film, but I think one thing that I took away from it was the main character would say, instead of saying thank you to me, help 3 people.
Right. At the end of the day, when you pass away, it's going to be Amritari Rahatwan Gursik that comes to perform that. Nobody else can perform it for you. And as soon as we run out of that, then we're going to realize its importance, because before that, we can spend our life how we want to spend it. But at those final moments, you're going to need to, and we're going to need those Rahatwan Gursiks to perform our final rites. So as an investment, to have a love for that and increased investment in that and interest is for everybody's benefit. Because otherwise, yeah.
The good thing is it's not just at your death, right? So now you're going to get married.
Or even when you're married,
your kids are going to be born. And
when you're younger, I think you're going to look to your parents for an example. So that's the responsibility for the parents, to show that example. But for example, those people that don't get it, like I think you gave the example where it's not necessary that you have to have the example. Like sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the father is not following, and sometimes the son, sometimes is like the Shastrtari, Amritari with case and has loads of love. So I think it's that there's an element of a personal transformation that somebody goes through when they start looking through it and having love for it. But I think what Saguru Jagadish used to say is, when you get to a certain age, so I'm talking about those that are slightly older now, you get to a point where you can't really look to your parents anymore. Like, you're going to have a level of, you need to start thinking about where you want to be. So it doesn't mean your parents are at a certain point or your relatives at a certain point, and that is your barrier. There's always a level where you would want to know. And if in your heart you knew when you were growing up that you had all these questions and you felt you didn't have somebody to go and get those answers from, there's nothing stopping you from becoming that person to answer those questions at a bare minimum for your own children, because they're going to have the same questions. And I think Saguru Jagadish gave the example of, your parents might have a certain amount of wealth. They're always going to want for you, or you're going to want for yourself, to have an increased amount of wealth. Yeah. You're never going to want less. And I think the same applies to this as well. I think that's the way I look at it anyway. Like, I think at a certain age, I think you have to take it onto yourself.
On that note, facts of the week.
Before we get to the recording of these right, I've accumulated so many and then I forget them all. I've lost them. So now that I have to then now look for something. So the one that I found is the word bed. Actually, it looks like a bed.
I like that one.
More than a fun fact, it was pretty inspirational to me. It's someone I went to uni with. It's a girl called Baljinder she was in Leicester at the time, but I'm not sure where she is now. But she's an artist on Instagram, and she puts a note that says, in all aspects of life, your kamai is your currency. So your nitnem is your kamai. Your practice, so for us it would probably be like music or art. That practice is also your kamai. Your physical fitness, your mental well-being is also your kamai. She's also written here, you can only put in the effort and the rest is Guru Kirpa. Even effort is Guru Kirpa, but try anyway. Kamai is the currency worth pursuing and collecting, then spend it on the panth or in some way purposefully. I thought that was really cool. We may share a screenshot of that post, but I find that really useful, just to keep my mind in check at times.
During the British colonial period, the empire, a lot of people actually liked playing it, and this is where it gained a lot of popularity. Over kind of the holiday period, we've been playing carom board. I think it's quite cool. I think playing those types of games with hand-eye coordination, playing in a group, I think those kind of board games, I think they're quite good. It's quite good. Better than looking at the screen all day. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Done. Sorted.
Nice.
We done?